Hi, I'm Johnny, and you're watching the Hexy Beast. And on today's episode, I'm going to be doing a review of this game right here, Techlandia. I just want to say I did receive a review copy of this game, but it's not a sponsored video. So anyway, without much further ado, let's get it to the table. So this is Techlandia. Let's have a little read of the back of the box, shall we? Imagine a world where people are enslaved by their electronics, where we willingly allow websites and smartphones to spy on us, and even pay for the privilege. Oh wait, that actually sounds like real life. But imagine all that stuff, plus the twisted CEO of one of those tech giants using his power and influence to open the floodgates to another plane of existence, bringing ancient evils to Earth. That's where you suspect is happening at the Techlandia Corporation, the world's biggest maker of overpriced smartphones, where CEO Dexter Ward is announcing the company's newest phone, the top secret, Techlandia TX1. You haven't been invited to the grand launch of the TX1, but you're not a tech blogger because you like following the rules. There's something strange going on here, and you're going to expose it all, and hopefully save the world. So in Techlandia, what you're going to be doing is investigating rooms to get fragments of a QR code that you can eventually put into the security room and exit through the elevator. So anyway, let me just show you how this game is played. Okay, so the first thing you do when starting the game of Techlandia is you lay out the purple map tiles in a column, starting with the Welcome Centre, followed by Security, the Press Room, and the Elevator. You're then going to take the remainder of these map tiles and you're going to shuffle them up, and you're going to take 4 of them off the top. Put these back in the box. Now what you're going to do is you're going to lay these out in positions 1, 2, 3, 4. So they make a shape that looks like this by the time you've constructed it. So the next thing we want to do is build the location deck using these cards with the word location written on the back. First, you want to find the 3 cards that match the first 3 spaces of the column: Welcome Centre, Security and Press Room. And we've got them all right here. Next, you'll want to grab the cards that represent the tiles you just placed on the outside of the board. So we've got our server room, R&D lab, selfie sanctuary, and the company museum. We are then going to shuffle these together and place them face down next to the board. Next, you want to take these large story cards, which are numbered on the back, and place them in a pile in descending order next to the board. Now we're going to shuffle and place the encounter, gear, and investigation decks. Next, you're going to take this definitely not a doomsday clock card, place it next to your story deck. Take one of these red cubes and place it on the number 20 space. This is basically going to act as our timer throughout the game. Then you're going to want to shuffle these enemy cards and also put them next to the board. And now we're going to take this deck of 4 QR codes, shuffle them up and place them face down nearby. I'll tell you how these work later. Okay, next we're basically going to be choosing one of these skills at the bottom. They basically give us a +1 dice roll to our modifier. I'm also going to choose a standee for a character, and we're going to place them in the Welcome Centre, ready to begin. Also, you're going to want to place these enemy markers near the board somewhere you can reach them. Okay, so now it's time to start the game. Let's turn over the top card of the story deck. Your Uber pulls up to the glass front doors of the largest building of the Techlandia campus, where a smattering of abandoned electric scooters litter the walkway. Reporters, bloggers, and YouTubers mill around in the Welcome Centre. Lacking an invite to this event, you slip unnoticed, determined to expose the truth behind the TX1. Also, don't forget to put these QR fragment tokens out on the table somewhere. Just going to lay them by here for now. Okay, so the objective of the game is for us to investigate all 4 rooms and get to the security room in order to submit our QR code and get to the elevator before this definitely not a doomsday clock runs out. So let's get on with the first turn, shall we? Okay, so in Techlandia, players are going to take 2 actions per turn. And these actions can either be move into a connected space, so any of these 3 in this case. It can be investigate in a room. So if we was in here, we would draw from this investigation deck and resolve the card. We can pick up one of these QR code fragments, which will eventually be placed by one of these investigation cards. And as well as that, we can also either submit the main QR code at the security room, or we can get more gear cards at the press room once per round. Okay, so for my first turn, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a move action to move to the selfie statuary, and I'm also going to take a second action in order to investigate the location. So let's have a look, shall we? Looks like there's something useful on this USB key. Success. Spawn 1 QR code and 1 enemy via the location deck. Okay, this is perfect. Now I get to show you how the location deck works. Okay, so because this card has requested that we spawn 1 QR code and 1 enemy via the location deck, we're going to do that now. First thing we're going to do is we're going to draw a card from the location deck. And this will determine in which space we'll place the QR code. So in this case, this token is going into the server room. Let's not forget, it also asked us to spawn an enemy, so we'll do that now too. It's going to be in the R&D lab. So in order to spawn the enemy, what we're going to do is we're going to take one of these enemy standees and place it in the room, which in this case was the R&D lab. And we're also going to take one of these enemy cards, place it over here, ready for us to fight should we come into contact with that enemy. I'll explain combat in a minute. Now that we have finished both actions of our turn, we're going to move this doomsday clock down by 1 space. Okay, so every time we successfully investigate a room, we also need to add a red cube to the designated room number. And because the selfie statuary was room number 4, we're going to place the red cube on room number 4. You can only investigate each room once successfully. Okay, let's try and play this second turn a little bit faster. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to move once into the company museum. And I'm going to investigate for my second action again. There's nothing here, at least nothing you can find. Failure. Draw 1 encounter card. If in a red room, lose 1 action next turn. See, now this is a good time to explain the differences between the rooms. As you can see, this card referenced if it was a red room. These are generally higher difficulty than these blue rooms. And that is mainly because a lot of the investigation and encounter cards will have effects that will specifically target the red rooms. So this asked us to draw an encounter card. So let's do that now. And let's see what happens. Ever been the last day of Comic-Con? Draw 1 location card and move to that room to escape. Let's have a look then. Okay. So with that location card, selfie statuary, fair enough. That's just going to move us right back where we came from. So, failed investigation, and we're back where we started. Let's not forget, we got to also move down this doomsday track. Okay, I think we should try and take our chances with that enemy. So this turn, I'm going to spend both of my actions moving into the R&D lab, where this enemy is. I won't have to fight him right away, but on my next turn, I won't be able to do any other actions until I fought this enemy. Also, don't forget, doomsday clock down once again. Okay, so I think now it's time to talk about combat. So because we're in the space with the enemy and it's our first action of our next turn, we're going to have to fight. As you can see, this enemy has a skill thing of disinfo. Well, as you can see, we didn't pick disinfo, so we ain't getting a +1 to this roll. But I suppose now would be a good time to talk about gear cards. So, this one, for example, I've got right here, which you can use these at any time and they don't require an action, by the way. This basically says, worth every borrowed penny. Reduce the enemy's combat rating by 2. In this case, the enemy's combat rating is 3, meaning we'd only actually need to roll a 1 to beat this guy. So let's try that now. Roll a 4, no problem. So, because we beat that enemy's combat value, we're going to remove this enemy from the board. As well as that, we're also going to get a decryption code. Every time we defeat an enemy, we're going to get one of these decryption codes. I'll explain what they do later. Also, we're going to discard this enemy card. Okay, so that's the end of another turn, which means moving the Doomsday Clock again. Okay, at the end of next turn, we're going to get onto one of these red spaces, which I'll explain after the turn. Okay, for my 2 actions this turn, I think what I'm actually going to do, instead of trying to investigate again, I'm just going to move into the server room and pick up this QR code for my second action. And because we've acquired a QR code, what we're going to do is we're going to take another red cube and place it in the first space on our QR code supply. Now at the end of our turn, we reach the first red space on the board. Now this basically means that what we're going to do is we're going to take the one that says 15 and we're going to read it out. So in this case, the glass windows facing onto the Techlandia campus darken as an earthly wind howls past. It's funny, you don't recall Alexa saying anything about bad weather today. Looking outside, clouds swirl in a tight spiral overhead as a murder of crows circles just below. That's probably not a good sign. Each player must draw one encounter card. Aha! Lucky for us, let's move one space in any direction. I think I'm going to move myself into the press room. So it's the start of my next turn, and I'm basically going to be using this press room to draw another gear card, so I'll do that now. Aha, so I'm going to go place this with the rest of my gear cards. It's a fun little power. Send yourself to an empty desk in another room. Okay, and for my second action this turn, I'm going to move from the press room into the company museum. Then we're going to advance the clock again. I'm just going to take a moment to explain what would happen should we fail a check against an enemy. In this case, the skill is spyware, meaning we'll get a +1. We've got 5 to beat. So say we roll our dice. Oh no. We roll our dice and imagine that it landed on a 2. 2 + 1 from the spyware is 3. Not enough to beat this 5. What would happen in this case is we would add 1 cube to our objectivity. This basically functions as our health. Okay, we would then move our character all the way back to the welcome center, and we're also going to move this cube all the way back to the next red space, which will then advance this Doomsday Clock further. Okay, so once you've managed to get all 4 rooms investigated and picked up the codes generated by them, you would then want to travel to the security room in order to check for a QR code. I'm going to show you how to do this now. Okay, so I'm going to use my first action to move to the security room. And then I'm going to use my mobile phone to draw one of these grey cards and scan the code on it. And my phone will tell me if we've won or lost. This is where these decryption codes come in familiar, as if I fail on this check, it would mean I lose the game, unless I spend a decryption code in order to check another card. As you can see, if you have 3 decryption codes, as well as all the QR codes, it's pretty much impossible to lose. Okay, so that's pretty much everything about how this game is played. Now, why don't we get back to the table, where I'm going to sit down and I'm going to tell you what I think of this game. Okay, so now we've come to the part of the video where I'm going to tell you what I think of the game. And first of all, we're going to mark it out of aesthetics. And for this one, we've given it a 7 out of 10. Mainly because I think the art on the tiles look good. However, I'm kind of disappointed in the way that every card in the same deck has all the same art on it. It just seems counterproductive, especially as the writing is just so good. You'd think that it would be a great way to inject theme. Even with the gear, you'd think you'd get some items, but they all have this same notebook, pencil, Polaroid and camera look. So generally, I didn't score it high in art, or aesthetics for that matter. And now that brings us on to our next category, which is gameplay, which I've actually given it a 6, which this is probably just a me thing, but I find it's just, the game really does lack variety. You know, the mechanics are quite basic. I never really, even after a few games, I felt I was kind of done. There's no extra story cards in there. You know, the actions get quite repetitive quite quickly, and I just generally thought the game itself had a lack of meaningful decisions. So like I said, I've had to give that a 6 out of 10. The one thing I did like about it is its game length. I think it's nice and short, and it's just about right. If you want to use it as a game to play between other games. And this moves us on to accessibility, which in this case is actually got an 8 out of 10. This is mainly because I find that the great writing in this rulebook, it's generally quite witty, it's quite funny, humorous. I found it made learning the game itself quite a breeze, really. Even down to there's just a few good jokes in here. Also, I think that the tiles themselves and generally a lot of the interface of the game, it is generally done quite good. So like, even it's not a doomsday clock, you can see it quite well from a distance. All the rooms are brightly coloured enough so that you can actually tell, you know, what's going to happen between them. Although the only difference between the rooms is that one's red and one's blue. You know, so that's accessibility taking a look at, and that brings me down to my total score, which is going to be a 7 out of 10. I don't really hate this game. It's just, like I said, after a few plays, I just found that I was done with it. I did hear that it is part of a series, and I can see that it definitely has that sort of prologue feel to it. There's really only that one scenario, and you just repeat it over and over. And like I said, after a few plays, I just think this game just doesn't have legs. So my total score was, what was it, 7 out of 10, which is probably my lowest score, but it doesn't mean I hate the game. I'm just going to say that now. I still think it's a good game. It's just not one of my favourites. So if you like what you see, please feel free to smash that subscribe button up there. Check out another one of my videos up here. I've been Johnny, you've been watching the Hexy Beast, and most of all, stay hexy, everyone.